Okay, I think we are good to start now. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you had a good session yesterday. And just to inform you, the link is already in the YouTube channel of the Alumni Association in case you missed it. For today, we have three very good speakers lined up. We have, I know it is a very big topic. We're addressing the summers. It is something which is on everyone's mind. First up, we have Gautam Ishwar. Gautam was from the PGP batch of 2017. He's the ex placement committee secretary. He's currently with Goldman Sachs, which is where he interned and converted his PPO. So, Gautam, over to you to start with your session.
Thank you, Nidhi. Just let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the introductions, Nidhi. So yeah, before I start, a small disclaimer. So I'm hoping that you guys have several other sessions on placements through the course of your induction. So I'll not go into all the nuances as yet and leave it to the folks that will follow later. I'll touch on more basic and crucial things that many students miss both while preparing for the summer placements and during the placement process itself, right? So yeah, with the introductions and disclaimers out the way, let's start with what we actually came for, summer placements, right? So why do summer placements matter, right? Most importantly, some of the best roles on campus, be it consulting, investment banking, and even some general management roles, are recruited exclusively through internship and the pre-placement route nowadays. It's not like earlier where almost all the placements used to happen through final placements. These roles are made available only in final placement only if the company did not find enough worthy interns for the role. So if these are the roles that you're looking out for, then yeah, summer placements is the answer. That's what you should be aiming for. Also, I mean, for a select few of you on this session, you might know what you want to do after an MBA. Good for you. But I mean, having spoken to several batches through the years, I know that for most people in the incoming batch, they're not very clear with the forward path. They don't know which discipline to pick, which sector to pick, etc. For such people, the summer internship is a very good opportunity. You get to look at the job firsthand. You get to look at the company, the culture, the day-to-day work, the team, the strategic path that they have, and all. And you get to choose. You get to see whether you like it, whether you don't. Right? Like many of you might be of the opinion that you're brilliant consultants, and consulting is what you want to go into, and all that. But once you go to the internship, you might understand that maybe consulting is not the thing for you, or maybe yeah, like finance is what you want, but you just want to get into a different organization. Maybe the organization you interned with is not the best organization that you'd want to get into. Your character does not fit the company, right? So these are things where summer placements really help to get a flavor of what the work might be. And yeah, coming to the process itself, with summers, the expectation that companies have from you are a little more realistic. Why? Because I don't know how many of you know this, but usually summer placements happen at the end of term one. Of 6 terms, you've just been through one term. Companies understand this, and hence they set their expectations also a little more realistically. They won't go to the same depth of knowledge that they expect in final placements. So yeah, you have a far better chance at cracking interviews and getting into the organization, right? Like once you get into the organization, you have a far better chance of displaying your skills and then showing to them why you're the best person for the role. Versus final placements, it's going to be an interview, and you'll have to dazzle them in that very short period of final interview. But with a summer internship, it helps you in all this regard. And yes, the most obvious part, summer internship is a way for you to get the job itself in the company that you'd want. And more so than ever nowadays, the summer placement process is becoming a regular part of recruitment itself. It's no less important than final placements nowadays. Why, you might ask? It's just that, just like how you get a chance to evaluate the company when you go for the internship, the company also gets a chance to evaluate you when you're there, right? Like the interview process is quite short. It's about 10-15 minutes or so. But an internship is not the same, right? It's 2 months. You're there. You can't just act your way out for 2 months, right? Like they get to know what kind of person you are, whether you're the right fit for the team, whether the culture matches, whether your technical skills are enough for them. They're able to figure all of this, and companies understand this more and more every year, and they're moving towards the PPO route, more. So if you actually talk to your seniors, you'd understand that year on year, the number of people who get selected through the PPO route is increasing every year. And besides this, right, like let's say you go to the internship, you don't get a PPO, right? Even in that case, summers do matter, because in final placements, among the first things that companies notice and might even ask you about is where you intern, how was the internship like, and did you like the job, did you not like the job, and why, and all of those things, because all of these are information that the company can get from you, your behavioral characteristics and all of those. And it really aids them in the interview process during final placement. So either ways, whether you want to get a PPO or you want to get placed through the final placement process, a summer internship is going to be quite helpful. Okay. Coming to some details, right? Like because you are the incoming batch, I want to talk to you about how the summer placement process itself works. Why? Because there are a lot of nuances based on how the process is structured, right? Like, and it's going to be quite different from what you've seen during your UG. So, firstly, summer placements start at the end of term 1, right? So you have very short time before the summer placement starts. You have about 3 months to prepare for all of this. So you don't have time to settle in, understand the lay of the land, decide what you want, and then start preparing. It's going to be a flurry of activity in the first term. There's going to be club and committee inductions. You will have to start preparing your resumes. You'll have to prepare for academics, for exams, company tests. All this will be lined up in that 3-month period. You're going to be severely time crunched. So, you'll have to prepare for that both mentally and otherwise, right? Like people will reach out to you right now and maybe over the course of a couple of weeks to ask you to do a few things before the term starts. And my advice would be to complete as much as possible before the term starts, right? Like you don't want to sit during the 3 months and then panic saying you don't have time to finish all of this. So as much as possible, try to finish everything that you can before the term starts. Resume iteration, coming up with points for your resume and all of this. If it's possible, do it before the term starts itself. Now to the second more interesting thing is, so unless you're from an IIT, this is something that might be new to you. The placements in Indore is generally happens as multiple simultaneous processes. So you might see things like 10, 20 companies, 30 companies on campus in a single day. And this is going to be quite new to you. Like it might not be like how it was in UG, where you have one or two companies in campus for a day, where they take interviews through the day and then they have multiple rounds and all of this. It's going to be quite different. And also some other nuances that come associated with this, is some of you might get shortlists from multiple companies on a single day, and some of you might get even one or maybe even 0 shortlists in a particular day. But mind you, this means nothing. This means literally nothing, because there have been cases of people who have not gotten placed after even 10, 20 interviews and somehow cracked the very first interview that they've sat for, right? So if you have your head in the sky and you're like, I have 20 shortlists, 30 shortlists, and you're not preparing well enough for them, might very well happen that you might not get placed in one of the better companies, right? And similarly, don't get dejected if you just have one interview, because that's all that it matters, right? Like one interview, just go to that one interview, you crack it, you get in. That is all that matters. It doesn't matter how many shortlists you get. So through the placement process and the week leading up to it, ensure in a calm state of mind, and take things as they come. Don't panic or don't be like overconfident with what you see through the process. And the next thing, again, is something that might be different from what you've seen in your UG. The interview process. The interview will be very short. At sometimes, it might be as short as even 10 minutes. So unlike in your undergrad, you might not get a lot of opportunities to show, to impress the interviewer. You can't fumble with your first or second or third question and then, hope to get a fifth question to impress them. So you'll have to take the chances as they come during the interview. You might not get a lot. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about was the notice that you get between when the shortlist is out and when your interview itself happens. So in some cases, the notice period might be as short as 2-3 hours. You might just get the shortlist and you might be asked to walk into the interview in 2 to 3 hours. So please don't think you can always prepare for the interview after you get the shortlist. That's not going to happen. You will have to prepare through the term. You'll have to prepare for all of these, assuming you're going to get the shortlist. Okay. Let's move on to industry expectations. Yeah. You might be wondering why this slide looks empty. But as the software adage goes, this is not a bug, it's a feature. I want to tell you that the expectations that company have during summer placement process are quite less. As I mentioned earlier, this is because this is at the end of term one. Companies understand this. They know that you have not gone through the entire rigor of the course, and they set their expectations accordingly. But this is not to say that they'll be okay if you make a blunder with something as basic as what's taught in term one courses, right? Certain things are basic for a course, like fair price of a bond for let's say finance companies, or a case interview for consulting companies and such, right? Like if you don't know them, then it's not going to turn out well. But these are basic things. I expect you to pick these things up through the course of the first term. But yeah, in general, the expectations are much lower. The depth of knowledge that they expect from you is not going to be much. And so if anything, I would say, it's going to be easier for you to pick up the basics of all sectors and not just the sector that you like, right? Yeah. But I want to talk about certain things that are not so obvious as far as the placement process goes. When you prepare for the interviews during the term, you might prepare more broadly along the lines of finance or consulting or sales and marketing. But when it comes to the process, please consider every job as special and prepare for them specifically. You might have sat through 5-10 interviews before this, but for the company, this is the first impression that they're having of you. So ensure that you know the role, you understand the job description, and you understand the details from pre-placement talks that the company had before. If you don't make this effort, it's a very clear sign to the company that you're not too interested in the role. And in many cases, companies would rather not pick you just because you're not interested and nothing else. And another process that might be new to a lot of folks is things like networking sessions that companies conduct. These might be in the form of presentations, lunches, informal conversations, or anything along those lines. But mind you, like when it comes to placement processes, nothing is informal. Everything is part of the process. Companies might claim it's informal, but mind you, like they're using all of this to check your interest level, your soft skills, how you interact, will you work well with the team, and all of these things. So please ensure you present yourself well during such sessions. And if you don't, you're going to lose out on the offer even before you sit for the interview. Decisions might be made even before that, right? And another common mistake that I've seen a lot of people make during the process is that to show how intelligent you are, some people end up being too brash and snobbish. Okay, as much as companies try to hire the best and the brightest, they're also looking to hire teammates. So they need to understand that you can work with others and contribute to the team, right? So the bottom line is, in summer placements, companies are looking for people with good IQ, EQ, and who are interested in the role. So as long as you can demonstrate that you can do reasonably well in all three, you should not have too tough a time. So don't worry too much about this. Okay. So this is another few things that I've seen hundreds of people falter during the placement process. This might seem very obvious when I say it, but trust me, common sense is not so common. It happens, right? So yeah, firstly, know your resume. For a lucky few of you, you might have a problem of plenty, and you might have enough good points to fill a one-page resume. And but for many of you, you might struggle to fill the last 10-20% of your resume. But in trying to make your resume more interesting, please don't add things that you're not too confident about or you can't speak much to. A resume is supposed to be a list of your achievement and your experiences. So if you're not able to speak to them, the interviewer might think that you're not too sound in your fundamentals, or worse, they think that you might be prone to misrepresent and lie. And in such cases, it might completely kill the chance of you getting that offer anyway. So you better off not trying to exaggerate or add things that should not be on your resume. And secondly, prepare for alternatives, both mentally and otherwise. All of you might have dream companies and favored sectors. However, no one knows how the situation might be this year. So, like, don't get dejected if you don't get the dream offer that you wanted. You need to mentally prepare yourself for such some circumstances so that you can move on to other interviews and roles quickly. You will not have too much time during the placement process to grieve, right? So, during the term, prepare for all alternatives. Have companies prepare. Have different resumes for different sectors. People will reach out to you and help you with this, but yeah, ensure that your resumes for different sectors are as refined as they are for your favorite sector, and prepare for basics in across sectors. You don't know where you're going to end up with. Again, something that's again obvious. There are certain questions that there are certain things that you should not tell an interviewer, right? Like, don't tell an interviewer that might hint that you're not interested in the company, right? Like, so things like, don't tell them that you're writing a CFA if you're sitting for a consulting firm. That's a clear indication that you're probably more interested in finance than you are in consulting. And this can happen quite often, right? Like, that you get shortlisted by two companies, A and B, which are competitors. So you might end up in situations where you have to go tell A that you're interested in A and not in B, and go tell the vice versa to the other company. In these cases, like, don't try to be truthful and tell them exactly what's happening. They might appreciate your openness, but they'll finally end up rejecting you. So that's not the place to do that. So ensure you take care of these. And also, there are a few standard questions that companies ask. Things like, tell me about yourself and why this company, why this sector, why are you doing an MBA, why are you trying to switch sectors and all of this. See, ironically, many of these are supposed to be icebreaker questions. These are to make you comfortable in the interview. So you should not get flustered by questions like this, right? Like, that's the last thing that you want. So ensure you go through these standard questions, you prepare for them, and you're very fluent with them, so that you're able to talk you're able to handle those questions during the interviews. The best thing that can happen to you is you get these standard questions and you're able to spend time doing that in the interview, rather than talk about things that you don't know. So if you have a 10-minute interview, you'd rather spend 5 minutes on this and then on something else. And finally, it's okay to say you don't know. So in case you don't know the answer, just tell the interviewer that you don't know, and they say that you're making an educated guess. Because if it turns out that you got the right answer after you told them this, they might hold you in a higher state than if you actually knew the right answer, right? Like, if you have the right thought process and the right reasoning to come to the right answer, they might appreciate it far more than if you already knew the right answer. So please don't try to cover it up, and please let them know if you do not know the answer. It's fine. And yeah, what to do? How do you prepare for the summer placement process to return? I'm pretty sure you're going to have a lot of sessions post this, and people might cover this. So I'm not going to go into too much details. So yeah, understand the basics of all the courses that you have in term one, and ensure you don't make mistakes with those. And this one thing that I wanted to cover specifically in this is your soft skills. So this is something that I personally believe in. That if you're pretty fluent in English and you have good soft skills, you will get into a decent company irrespective of how much technical knowledge you have. So if you're one of those few people who are not very comfortable in English, please do concentrate on that through the term. it is going to be really important. Like there'll be companies like sales and marketing companies who will have GDs. So if your soft skills aren't great, you might not even end up with interviews. So ensure that you take care of your soft skills through the term. And yeah, finally, don't worry. I know I've told you a lot of things. It might be a lot of information, but yeah, thousands have gone through this process before you have, and thousands will after this. Yes, the situation is more fluid with COVID around, but there are people to help you out. The institute, the placement committee, your seniors, your alumni, different clubs and committees are all there to give you a helping hand. All that you have to do is stay calm and utilize the support structure, and everything should work out well. Okay. If you have any questions, I can take them now.
Thank you, Gautam. That was very helpful. There have been a lot of questions in the chat. I'll ask some of them to you. So the first question I want to start with is with the COVID-19 situation. There is understandably there's a lot of questions in the patch on how the summers will take place, whether the timeline will be moved. I'm sure the placement committee will come in to guide them with all of that later. But just as someone who's currently in the industry working in one of the companies which come for hiring on the campus, do you have anything to say for that?
Yep, exactly. So I'm not going to go into the process and those details. Yeah, the placement committee is far better position to handle that. But yeah, see, you need to understand something, right? Like, why do companies some placements, right? They want to evaluate you and they want to hire you for 2022, which is 2 years from now. That's a lot of time, and companies understand this, right? Like, they know that things might change quite a bit in the next 2 years. So personally, I expect the summer placement not to be affected too much. I still think companies might, go with the optimistic view and come and hire similar or maybe slightly lesser than last year, and then make the final decisions around PPOs next year. By which time it should be far more clearer as to what the economy and the wider consequences will be. So, yeah.
Once again, everybody in the current batch, your current seniors and your placement committee will be there to help you with details like timelines. As alumni, we will not be able to help you with timelines at this point, but don't be worried about that part. There will be a lot of people who are much more capable who will be taking care of all of this for you. So I'll just move on to the next question, which is so there's a lot of questions on what is how your current background, your undergraduate percentage, your courses, extra certifications, your undergraduation stream, how is that going to contribute to your summer internship? So say someone like an engineer wanting to aim for a consulting role, or someone who wants to go for a marketing role and has no relevant experience. So a lot of questions for freshers also.
Yep. So yeah, this is actually a common misconception among a lot of people, that consulting looks for, people with work experience, or, you have to be a triple niner to get into certain companies and all of this. But trust me, like, we have seen enough cases through the years where almost every myth is broken, right? Certain things are out of your hand, what percentage you got in your 12th, or, how much you made in your UG and all of this. It's all done, right? Like, don't worry about them right now. Just look at what more you can do. Things like certifications. Yes. If you're looking at finance companies, it's a strong statement to make saying, I've applied for CFA, I'm going to write for CFA. But if you're looking for digital marketing, things like Google AdWords, right? Like, if you tell them I've applied for them and I'm going to do that, even if you complete them before your summer internship, all that's going to help. But yeah, mind you, term one is going to be really hectic. You might be severely time crunched, so you'll have to figure how to balance things. If you really think you can fit all of that, you should, and it would help. Hey, Nidhi, I think you're on mute in case you're talking.
Yes, sorry. Yes, so I was just saying that for the next question, there are some questions on So there are a lot of people who are not sure what they want to do for a summers because they're not sure where they want to end up, and they are worried about how important, how much of a commitment is summers. So what if you end up in a finance role or in a marketing role, and then you decide that no, this is not my cup of tea, and you want to end up of finance and finance. So how much will your summers drive your finals? Is the question.
Yep. So yeah, see, in case you just get into the right company, everything works out well, everything is hunky dory, no issues. But yeah, in case it doesn't turn out to be what you like, definitely summers are there to help exactly with that, right? Like so once you go there, you understand that the job is not for you. Yes, you still get a second chance with final placements. How big a factor is summer placements for that? I would say not a lot. We've seen a lot of people switch around sectors. They already had work experience. They worked for 2 years in a field, intern somewhere else, and then got into a final placement somewhere else. But yeah, because you've been 2 years into your MBA and you have intern somewhere else, you'll need to convince the company that you are indeed really interested, and it's not a second choice or third choice, and you're getting into the company because there was no other option, right? Should ensure that that doesn't happen. So let's say you go to finance and you realize that finance is not what you want, and you want to move to sales and marketing. Then yeah, you have things like several competitions that happen, case study competitions that happen, all these things where you can demonstrate to companies that yes, you have switched your mindset. This is what you are pretty sure that this is what you want to go into, and that is why you're sitting for this company. So as long as you're able to demonstrate these things, it should not be that big an issue. Like you still be able to get into what you want during final placements as well.
Okay, I'll move on to the last question for Gautam, and we'll see if we can cover the rest with the other two speakers. If not, we always have other communication channels. We'll be sharing you details with all the three speakers. So for Gautam, the last question I'm giving to you is that how much do courses on Coursera and Udemy, how much do they matter? Are they helpful as a resume point or in general, just as a
so yeah, they do help as far as knowledge goes, but professional certifications, closer to CFA and things like that, add a lot more weight than Coursera and Udemy courses. Unless the course is so well known that people can just pick it up. You need to understand that the interviewer is someone like you, but just 4, 5 years or 10 years down the line, right? Like so they also might not know the universe of all certifications that exist and how difficult it is to clear them, right? So a lot of things is driven by more word of mouth. So more popular certifications have a lot more impact than things that are not as popular. Coursera is a very broad thing, right? Like it depends on which course you take in that. Some of them are pretty easy to crack and some of them aren't. And these are nuances that some people might not catch. So as far as a resume point goes, I'm not sure how much weightage it might have. But yeah, definitely from a knowledge perspective, it should help.
Okay. I think we'll move on to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Gautam, for sparing some time. And with this, we will move on to the next speaker, who is Pallavi Roy. Pallavi is a PGP batch of 2020 pass out. She's an ex-placement committee member, and she's currently with Google. Pallavi, over to you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Hello, everyone. It's just been 4 months since I was on the other side where you guys are going to be. So I understand all the anticipation that you must be going through. I saw a lot of you have, questions around shortlists and, changing your domain if you have some work experience. So I just want you to walk you through what my journey has been like. Maybe that could give you some insight on what you can expect. So I did my BTech in Electronics and Communication Engineering, and from a non-IIT, non-NIT college. I have 2 years of work experience with Deloitte Advisory. And having seen around 4 placement seasons, I can tell you that do not sweat about the shortlisting criteria or about stressing about changing your domain. I did my internship as well in Deloitte, but after 2 months, I realized that I do not want to stick to consulting. That was definitely a challenge for me because 2 years of consulting experience plus 2 months of consulting. So a lot of companies, they came and they asked me, why is it that you want to shift from consulting domain? And I was like, what, this is not a good fit for me. And this is something that the company is going to respect. So if you have a certain amount of work experience in a domain and you're worried that that is only the thing that you can work on, that is not going to be the case. You are doing an MBA for a reason, and you should keep it in mind. Some of the common mistakes, I mean, Gautam covered most of it, but some common things that we've seen across the years happening. A lot of people have questions around, what are the basic things that you would want to ask the company folks. So one thing that you should keep in mind before interacting with any company person, be it in a pre-placement talk or during an interview, is how well do you understand the company and its sector. Before going in for any pre-placement talk or any interview, understand what the company's mission statement is like. What are the values that the company holds? What is the product portfolio like? It will help you get an insight into what is it that they're looking for. You have very normal questions like, why do you want to come and work for us? And why do you want to switch to this sector or this domain? So if you have those mission statements in mind and you can get on those keywords, that is going to create a common connect with your interviewer. So that is one thing that you should focus on. Secondly, and I cannot stress this enough, your CV. Okay. I mean, I know a lot of you are achievers in your domain, but remember that when you come to an institute like I am in Dor, everybody around you is going to be an achiever. So, and your CV is going to be the first thing that will distinguish you from everyone else. So, this is going to be your domain of expertise. And if you're not able to handle questions based on your CV, it's going to be difficult for you. And there are going to be a lot of iterations and a lot of people who would be coming in and helping you. You'll have a lot of assistance from Prepcom, from Placecom. Just take advantage of that. It's something very basic as having a typo in your CV, or font misalignment. That is not acceptable. Like, you are coming in, you're joining a premier institute, and that kind of standard and quality is expected out of you. So spend as much time as you can in building your CV. Do not sweat about what your UG marks or your UG achievements or whatever you did in school. You're not going to change that. Just think about what are the future steps that you can take. You will be having buddies, you will be having resume iterators who would be giving you insights based on your interest, based on the domain that you want to focus on what are the different CV points that you can add. Do not take it lightly. I'm telling you this right now. There would be iterations wherein you have to make a 5-page CV and then move on to a 1-page CV. You've seen people take it very casually, like, okay, theek hai, kar lenge. That is not going to work. You have time right now. As much time you spend on your CV, that is going to result, like, reap fruits for you during the summer placement process. The third major thing that you would want to focus on, like as Gautam also said, it's not about you guys being industry experts. Nobody wants you guys to be experts. They know it's only been a couple of months that you've been in the system. If you were already an expert, nobody would want you to do an MBA. It's just about the kind of awareness that you can show. So, like, a lot of you had questions around if the sectors, if the placements are going to be affected by the different sectors on different companies. What you want to learn right now is how is the current situation affecting the different sectors. So, like, we know automobile or manufacturing is going down, but we know any kind of data analysis company or cloud storage companies are going up. So these are the kind of insights that you would want to have as an IM graduate before you go into any kind of interviews. These are things that like, if you talk about the industry knowledge, this is very publicly available information. You would also have current affairs sessions with Prepcom. Capitalize on those. That is going to help you a lot in understanding and having talking points whenever you're interacting with, say, your seniors or company professionals, be it inside the interview or outside of it. Next, Gautam talked about networking. So yes, there can be two different kinds of networking. The one networking that Gautam talked about was, the formal interaction with the company folks. That is definitely a very major point. Some of us have questions on, we might not be getting shortlists. So I've seen, like, from personal experience, I can tell you, I've seen people who did not have shortlist in a company, but since they showed a lot of interest during the pre-placement talk and they took the initiative and they went out and they talked to the company folks, they caught the leader's eye, and they got a shot at an interview. So never underestimate the power of networking. That's about formal networking. And next we want to talk about informal networking. So I know you guys are not on campus right now, so it's very difficult, but everyone is just one LinkedIn search away. So if you don't have an updated LinkedIn profile, it's high time you make one, and you start reaching out to folks, seniors and your alums, and whoever. Like, you must be having some preference in domain, or you must be having some preference in your dream companies. So you start reaching out to those folks and understand what they did, what went right for them and what did not work out. So apart from that, I know there have been myths around, where freshers won't be getting consulting shortlists, or work ex people are not getting shortlists for marketing. That this is all again a myth. If you are working hard and if you have the right kind of resume for it, then there is no stopping you. I personally have seen people converting consulting shortlists when they have zero work ex, and people with 3 years of work ex moving to marketing. So if you really want to do it, you can do it very easily. Don't worry about that. Apart from that, I guess people have questions on whether you should focus on academics and PORs. That is again completely your choice. Like, I would say that this is the time that you have to experiment. And one of the major things about general management is, like, you can experiment with a lot of things. You have operations, consulting, finance. So do not rush to form a judgment about something. Okay, even if you get your summers in a certain domain, it doesn't mean that you're not going to you cannot switch your domain at all. That is not going to happen. It personally happened for me. So I'm rest assuring you, it's not going to happen for you. uh, I think that's all I have. I just want to give you guys a heads up that this is a selection process. You should keep that in mind. There are going to be a lot of stressful times, but yeah, if you survive term 1 of MBA, that is definitely going to come out as an achievement. So just don't sweat it out and reach out as much as you can to everyone around you.
Thank you, Pallavi. Very uplifting session, I'm sure. So I have some questions. So there are some questions on off-campus placements, off-campus summers. If some people want to try out for something like that, some people are worried because of COVID-19. They might not be able to bag a campus placement, and they want to look for options outside. So I know the placement committee is going to talk about all of this when they talk about when they have this session.
Right.
But do you want to touch upon it?
So there's always an option. Like, if you want to opt for off campus and you have contacts, you can definitely go for it. But from what the placement committee would also be referring to, that it's better to get an experience, an interview experience firsthand on campus, because this is what you came for here to IIM Indore, guys. I mean, you are getting the kind of exposure, and you're getting the kind of company leaders, industry stalwarts to interact with. So do not stress on that. There's always an option that you can look for it outside. We have a formal procedure for that. But it's not like you will, like, once you're in the process you cannot opt out at all. That is not going to be the case. So right now, just try to get a hang of this experience, which is like more important right now. And like later on, you can like, the placement committee will be helping you out. Don't worry.
Okay, and the next question is about PGP HRM. Since you are a batch of 2020 placement committee member, I'm sure you know a little bit more about it. What is the process of players summers for PGP HRM? Are they going to come to Indore? I don't know, with the COVID situation anyway, everyone is at home. So
So PGP HRM, they have a separate placement committee. So like there are some collaborations that happen, but PGP HRM will be addressed separately, and they'll have a separate summers process and everything. So there won't be any overlap happening with the PGP batch.
Okay. And there was a question on academics versus PORs. Which one has more weightage?
So again, like I said, it depends on the domain that you are looking at. For me personally, academics, like my academics was not too not on the stronger side. So I was putting a lot of focus on PORs and on case study competitions. So that is one major thing that you might want to look at right now, because case study competitions, they come in at a later stage, but from the last few years we are seeing the trend that the companies, they want to have more and more engagement with the students. So these case study competitions, these are going to be your best shot at converting PPIs, so pre-placement interviews. And these interviews are not based on your CV, they're based on some simulation games, or some case presentations that you get from the company and that you have to submit to the company. So these could be deciding moments for you. Like if you don't have a strong CV, you can definitely focus more on the case competitions and just get a pre-placement interview shot. So that kind of gets you to the level ground.
Okay, I think we covered most of the questions.
Okay, thank you.
There is, did you go already, Pallavi?
No, I'm right here, Nidhi.
There's one more question which just came up, which is about the IPM and PGP students. So, do they have the placements together? Is anyone at a disadvantage due to the high number of students eyeing for similar companies?
So IPM and PGP, they do have the placements together. I wouldn't say it's a complete disadvantage, but yeah, like since IPM is, a comparatively new program in the industry, companies are still trying to embrace the program. And, we have a lot of outreach sessions that we have with companies, the placement committee, the placement chair, everybody's involved in that. So companies are opening up. But if you compare, there could be some cases like some companies that only open for PGP, not for IPM, some open only for IPM, not for PGP. But like that is not going to be a hindering factor. Like everybody would get like equal number of opportunities. That's why placement committee is there.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. We'll move on to the next one. We'll move on to Molly now. Molly is a batch of PGP 2019 student. She was a top 5 percentiler at IIM Indore and a gold medalist at NIT Jalandhar. She is currently with BCG. Molly, over to you.
Thank you, Nidhi. I'm audible, right? Hi, guys.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll just share some content on the screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the session and thank you for logging in. So I'm going to first start with one thing that I think is going to answer a lot of questions, and that is I am that fresher who converted BCG without a WorkX. So honestly, even I was under the assumption that only people with WorkX get into consulting firms, and I never prepared for it. Then I did my internship in marketing. Then when I got a shortlist, I started preparing, and then I converted it. So just want to let you guys know, want to start with this thing that consulting isn't just for people who have a WorkX, who are from the consulting domain. Anyone can clear it as long as you are consistent, you prepare for it well, and you have the necessary technical skills that are required. So starting with this, I'm going to focus on only two major things that consulting firms often look for in an interview. One is problem solving skills. Second is communication. So starting from problem solving. So I have a detailed record after these two, after I summarize these 2 points. First, I'm going to summarize and then I'm going to talk in detail about the two. Firstly, what do you mean by problem solving? Problem solving is not limited to a very large problem of a firm. Let's say the firm says that we are facing problems with our profitability, and then you have to come up with the solutions for why they are facing profitability issues and what can be done to solve it. Problem solving is just not limited to that. You do problem solving in your daily life as well. You come across some kind of a roadblock in your life, and the jugaad that you look for to cope up with it, that is problem solving. But yes, of course, in your interview, you won't be doing that. So I have summarized a few points that you can actually focus on while preparing for consulting, the technical skills. So first is always revise your management concepts, and especially your first year concepts. It may be finance, it may be marketing, it may be operations. Just go through the basic concepts that are taught to you in the first and second term. That will actually help you form your structures. So the second point that I'm talking about is structuring. Your interviewers look for how you have structured the problem rather than if you're able to come with a recommendation and solve it. So let's say if your problem statement says that a company is facing a profitability issue, they will look at how you're going about that problem, what kind of a structure you're making to solve it, rather than you coming up with the final answer that what can be done about it. Because it's not possible for someone to come up with an answer in that 1 hour interview. So that is how it will, it's about making that structure. Third is, as all the speakers talked about, know a little about different industries. What are the different KPIs that that drive that industry, drive their profitability, things like that. For example, in telecom, one of the major KPIs that is looked at is average revenue per user, ARPU. So knowing about these things, so they are not expected to be a expert in that sector, but at least knowing a little about that sector is always a plus point. Fourth is guesstimates. I am hoping that almost every one of us have heard this term guesstimate. So guesstimate involves you making some kind of a mathematical some assumptions and a mathematical calculation to come up with a final answer to a question. The question can be something as something like how many airplanes are there in the sky right now, or what's the milk consumption of your campus. I am Indore. So how do you go about calculating that figure is guesstimate. Next is strengthening your maths. So so you don't need to be accurate here. You don't need to know that what's 17 into 23 or what's 56 into 95. No, you can always round off. So if your answer is coming to be about 403, you can round it off to 400. You're not expected to be accurate. Next is, okay, throwing in some buzzwords is again me saying that you should know the right term for the right management term related to whatever you are speaking. So things like knowing that the term for the entire, knowing terms like supply chain, knowing terms like profitability, EBIT, EBITDA, things like that, you should at least be aware. It's expected of you since you study all these in your first term. Next is, of course, it's preparing for consulting is a collaborative effort. You have to prepare with another person. Why? Because a consulting interview is unlike any other interview, where that other person will be acting as a client and giving you a problem. Okay. And they will talk to you. They'll talk you through the entire problem. You will be asking some questions to them. They'll give you some data. So it's always a good idea to pair up with another person who is preparing for consulting and practice that way. Last would be reaching out to some experts. So experts here can be your seniors, anyone you know in the consulting industry, things like that. You try to get some of their time. Try to practice a case, any small case if possible, and get their feedback on that, on how you did in that case. Moving on to the soft skills, that's the communication part. So by communication, what I mean is, I'll tell you how a interview happens, a consulting interview happens. So it's often a very large process. Unlike the other interviews that you just heard about, that an interview might be very small or things like that, consulting interview often lasts for at least 30 minutes to 1 hour. And you will have multiple interviews. I had 4 interviews, each of them lasting for about 45 minutes, 1 hour. And in the entire interview, you are talking to a person. It shouldn't be a monologue. You should involve that person. You should ask for the right data. They should be, engaged with you. So that is why communication becomes a very important skill when preparing for consulting, and which of course comes when you actually practice it. So you all prepared for CAT, right? And you must have heard all of your mentors or whoever you reached out to prepare for CAT. They would have said that try and give those actual exam, give that CAT exam online. It's in a very similar manner. You have to actually practice the interview with another person to know whether it's getting boring, are you good with your communication skills, all that. Now, second, as everyone was stressing upon the HR questions, the basic questions like why consulting, why this firm, tell me something about yourself. Prepare for these questions so that you don't fumble around at that time and you save your time. Next is the strengths and weaknesses question. So often people tend to ignore this question. Please don't do that. But preparing for this question is important. Why? Because this is often one of the, after asking the basic question, this is often the third question that is asked to you. Tell me 3 of your strengths or tell me 3 of your weaknesses, things like that. And another question that is related to this and is asked to you is, tell me a situation where you exhibited this skill of yours or that skill of yours. So preparing for this question becomes important. How you can do that is, that this is what I did. You can prepare, I prepared an Excel of all the major events, whether they be my achievements, all my failures. And then next to it, I just made a note of all the skills that either I exhibited or where I was weak at. And because they're all my own life experiences, right? So it actually helped me prepare for this question. And when you are answering this question to the interviewer, it's always a good idea to, so let's say if the interviewer asks me that to tell me something about your strengths, and I tell them I'm a fast learner, it becomes not really believable. It's always a better idea to associate a very small story with that strength, because it will give more, weight to your answer, that you have actually exhibited that strength in a real life situation. Honesty, again, I'm not going to go deep into it, but yes, whatever you have on your resume, you should have an idea about it. You should know every term that's written on it. That is very important, because if you don't know that, you are going to come across as a unreliable person. Pauses, smiles, all that is very important. So this is my own understanding I'm sharing with you, is that consultants often go for people who they have liked talking to. Why? Because in a life like consulting, which is often very hectic and stressful, having a good teammate, someone who is a nice person to be with, who will actually make you feel good, is always a good thing to have. If all your surroundings are stressful, having at least your team as a strength for you is a good thing. So practice your smiles. Pauses is important, because when you are giving your interview, you might need those pauses to think through your answer. So practice those with the partner again, whichever partner you select. It may be a friend, a fellow person who got a shortlist. Thinking out loud, I'll touch upon this topic in the detailed part. Humor with caution is, again, you might have a humorous personality. It's always good to engage into humor in your interview, but always have a viewpoint that whether the person in front of you is does he seem like a kind of person who might appreciate humor or not? Next part, as I was saying, in consulting interview is unlike any other interview. It's not an interviewer talking to an interviewee, but rather it's a mock situation of a client talking to a consultant. So you are not expected to just answer what is being asked to you. You are expected to start a conversation. You have to get them to answer things as well. So it's always good to ask questions also in a consulting interview. In fact, you will be doing that only. So this, I think Gautam also talked about this part. You might know a lot of things, but always remember the person before you will know more than you. He will be more educated. He'll know more about the industry. So don't try to be, there's a difference between defending your answer and being defensive. Don't be defensive, but yes, be assertive, defend your answer. If you think it's the right thing, go ahead, give your reasoning. If the person still, they point out something that doesn't work, think about it. If you think it that side, accept it. Last is always think that you have nothing to lose. So most of the consulting firms are actually going to be a very big learning experience for you if you get to give an interview with them. So if you go with that mindset that I have nothing to lose, you will actually be less nervous during the interview. That is what I did. So now we'll move on in details. So into the details. So now I'll describe how the interview actually happens. So you go into that interview setting. Okay, you are there with the other people who have the shortlist as well. You're called, and as soon as you enter, so a research says that you make your first impression during the first 7 seconds. Now, how to make that first impression really good? First thing, a consulting interview will expect you to, write down things, draw a structure, things like that. So always come prepared with at least a few pages and a pen, maybe a handkerchief. Second, as I stress upon this thing, always smile. Third, test the water. So this is a question that I have been often asked. Should I refer to them as sir, ma'am, or should I take their name, things like that? Should I go and sit there directly, or should I ask for permission? I would answer, I would say that always tread with caution. So, start with referring to them as sir. If they tell you, if you they come back to you saying, don't call me sir, call me, this is my name, things like that, then go ahead. Always ask for permission before sitting. These are all, basic things that, going through caution and all. I think everyone is aware of that. Fourth is your handshake should be confident. So again, remember, they are looking for a person who they might be, a person who is very safe to keep in front of the client. So, right now, I don't know how relevant this point is, doing a handshake and all those things. But yeah, this was something I still kept over here because you never know once the economy opens. So you have to be prepared for these things. Last point is just dress well, sleep well. I honestly, this is my personal experience. 3 days before my final interview, I stopped preparing for consulting. I was just listening to music, engaging in things that will keep me happy. So do that. If you have prepared well, believe in yourself. Now, this is the first impression part. Now the interview part, how that happens. So you sit before the interviewer, assume them to be the client. They will be telling you that we are facing this problem and you have to solve it for me. So for example, they say, I am a IT services company and my profits have gone down by 2%. What do I do about it? So this is going to be a simple problem statement that will be given to you. So you have to ask them, just, keep that in mind. This is a consulting case interview is very different from your normal case studies and case solving that you will start doing in your classrooms. How is it different? In the classrooms, the case studies that are given to you will have data, lots of data. I would still say limited data. Why? Because there's nothing to be done outside that data. In a consulting interview, you will start with a normal statement but you have to ask them for the right data. You have to look for the problem where it could be lying, where the major problem could be lying, and then you have to ask them that, okay, what's the, figures related to it, and then verify it and give them the final answer. So these are the 4 things that I actually kept in my mind while preparing for a consulting interview. So it was, sort of a structure that I made in my mind, that as soon as I get my problem statement, I'm going to follow these 3-4 things. First, I'm always going to repeat the problem statement to them to confirm if I understood it correctly. Second, so, consulting in consulting, things work through elimination. You eliminate the possible things that are not a possible answer to your problem. So first, how would I start? I should have that structure in my mind, that what I have to eliminate and where I have to go deep into. So my case solving used to start something like, I used to ask them that, is it a problem that every company in that industry is facing, or is it a problem specific to our industry? So they either used to tell me yes, but often the answer is no. They used to tell me it's a problem specific to their company only. So I have crossed out one possibility over here, which is that nothing specific in the entire economy, something like a COVID, something like a price rise in oil price rise has not happened. I can cross that out. Now I know it is a problem that is specific to my company only. I have done something wrong. I have maybe not gone up to the changes in the standards these days, and the other companies are doing good in it. Or maybe I made a big change in my working that has hampered my profitability, things like that. So next I will go about asking them that, is it a recent problem for me, or has it, been happening for over a time? So it's always a possibility that they maybe it's a more rooted problem to the business, to their business itself, rather than being an immediate kind of a problem. So again, often they tell me that it's a relatively recent thing. It has happened in the last 2-3 years. So again, we get to know that it's a relatively recent trend that has happened. So we have crossed out 2 things. One is that it's not external to the company, it's internal to the company. Next we know is it's a relatively recent thing and not a very, it's not a lasting thing that has happened. Third thing is, now we have to actually build a structure. How am I going to look at where the problem lies? There are different kinds of structure you can follow. Specifically, the revenue and the cost structure is a very basic thing, that in profit is a function of revenue minus cost. So you first ask them whether my revenue has gone down or my costs have gone up. Then you go further into it, breaking down revenues, volume into price. Then you ask them whether the volume has gone down or my prices have gone down, or maybe my price increase has happened due to which my volumes have significantly gone down. Things like that. Other structures that people often use are 4P, the 4 P's of marketing, product, place, price, promotion, all those things. Then 5 forces. There's a supply chain analysis where you look right from the start of where the product originates to the final point where the customer buys your product. Function analysis is looking at your different functions, like marketing function, your finance function, is where the problem lies, looking for where the problem actually lies. One good practice to follow is never name your structure. So don't tell them that you're using the 4 P's or you're using the 5 forces. Just start building a structure and solving them, eliminating the points where the problem may not be lying. Second thing that I often keep in mind is comparing. Comparing can be comparing with my competitors, comparing with my own past performance. So always remember, it's a good thing to compare your performance with others, because if you get to know that, if let's say the industry profitability was 10%, but your profitability is 5%, that means something is wrong with your company. Third that I'm going to stress upon is segmentation. So by segmentation, what I really mean is, let's say a company says their profitability is down by a figure of 10%. But I know that they further tell me that they have 4 products. Okay, I need to ask them what kind of percentage does these 4 products add to the revenue or the profit. Okay, why? Because let's say I don't know why I'm getting some okay. There are 4 products. Now I need to know what's the what kind of a contribution each product is making to my overall revenue or my profit. Why? Because let's say a product like A contributes to 90% and the product C contributes to just 5%. I wouldn't want to focus my strength on C. I would rather want to focus my strength on A and see what's wrong in A. Why? Because it forms 90% of a business, right? So don't forget to segment. Segment can be in terms of geographical segment. It may be a global business, and you get to know that your overall profits are low, but that is specifically due to some low profits in a specific continent, let's say Asia and not America. So you can focus your strengths on Asia rather than America. Final, like I would like to, as I was stressing upon, is involvement. Involvement basically means don't make it, as I stressed previously, don't make it a question and answer session. Don't be like you're just asking them that, are we doing well against our competitors? Is this down or that down? Don't just make it a question answer thing. You have to involve them. So let's say you're stuck somewhere, but you have some thought process going in your mind. Speak it out. Talk to them, tell them that you're thinking in this way, and actually your interviewer will appreciate it. They will actually give you hints to go forward with it. This happened to me in my 3rd interview. So it was a very weird problem. I got totally stuck. Then I started thinking out loud. I started telling them this is all is going in my mind. And they gave me some hints. They told me this is possible, this is not possible. It's always a good practice to, think out loud in these situations. Then always be diplomatic. Never say that this will absolutely solve your problem or things like that. You should always, tread with caution again. You should say that I believe this possibly should be able to, things like that. Finally, so this is one thing that often happens is it's a possibility sometimes that you might get a case that you may have done already. You might know the answer. So there's this tendency to go right to the answer itself. Don't do that. Try to follow your entire structure, because your interviewer will have a tendency to change the answer and then you will be stuck. So definitely don't do that. Finally, bringing in personal perspective is a very good point. How you can do that? So I remember I was helping out another person with a case. It was an electricity related case, and he had done a BTech in electrical engineering. He brought in his own knowledge that this is how things happen in the electrical industry with transformers, and I actually appreciated it. And your interviewer will also appreciate it. If you have you don't need to force fit your knowledge in everything, but if you think you have some kind of a knowledge, share it at that time. Finally, closing your interview. So what you say first takes the most. What I mean by this is, start by giving your recommendation first. If you have reached the recommendation part, tell them that it can be these are the 2-3 recommendations I gave for this problem. Why? Because this 3 points we identified while solving the problem. So why we do this is because people have a very small attention span. You need to capture it right in the start. And often the first thing that you say sticks. And that is what is expected of a consultant. Consultant has to make them know that this is what we want for you to do. And thus you have to first start with telling, when closing the interview, you have to first start with telling the recommendation. So often I use, this is my personal thing that I'm sharing with you is, when I used to be, out of any recommendations, anything I didn't know what to say, I used to check whether this problem can have a digital solution, whether there can be something that we can do in terms of innovation, anything innovative, or can we differentiate from a competitor. So I used to put these 3 checks in my recommendations. Third, as I said earlier, it's not just consultant. Everyone likes to be with another person who makes them feel nice. So don't be reserved or very nervous or things like that. Try to be as good a person at that time as possible for you. Next is so like I have been doing in the entire interview, right? I'm in presentation, right? I'm speaking. Consultants in general like to speak a lot. So thus you have to involve them, give them a chance to speak, ask the right questions. What I mean by this is often, I think many of you must have gone through at least one interview. In the end, they ask you, do you have any questions for us? Try to ask at least one question. Show your interest. It can be a question as simple as how's your daily life looks like, things like that. What made you join to BCG or any company wherever you are? This was what I asked. Next is when you are involved in the conversation, especially in the HR interviews, if you get to know some kind of a common point, always it's a good idea to expand on it. Next, don't flatter them. A good question to ask can be asking for feedback. You are done with your entire interview case interview, and now you want to know whether you did the right thing, or there were things that you were missing or not, and what can you actually, what kind of an advice you can get to implement in your next interview. Ask for these things, but don't ask them that whether I have cleared this or not. Don't ask for a result. Often people get uncomfortable talking about that. So this is my 2 cents on this topic. I hope I didn't bore anyone, because I work as a consultant. I had to mandatorily prepare this PPT, but don't take this as a standard. This is a bad PPT that I have made. I didn't have a lot of time to make. Last is the resources that you can use. So first 3 are some books. Victor Cheng honestly was my Bible. I loved that book. Loved reading that book. Case in point, case interviews, cracked are all booklets where you can find many solved cases. And further, your strategy club will have some consulting booklets with all the past questions and interviews of the people who got the shortlist. So you can leverage those resources. Finally, I would open it for questions.
Hello.
Yeah, Nidhi.
Yes. Yes. So I'll ask the question. So the question is about roles, consulting roles, which come up for campus, come up at IIM Indore. So it's more about consulting roles which BCG offers. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
So if I understand the question correctly, you want to know the kind of role that is offered, right?
Yes.
So I can maybe expand upon my BCG role. I don't know what the others, honestly. So we get a proper client-facing role. In the start, we get some kind of a training, for a week or 2, and then we directly go to a case which has an actual client, and we are given an actual module to solve, where I'm actually interacting with real clients over there in the industry. So it isn't that you get a back-end role or you just get a research role or things like that. You start as a general consultant. The title is different, and then you directly interact with your client and try to solve for the problem. So what I mean by general consultant is, so there are 2 things: an expert track or a general track. In general track, you tend to get cases from almost all kinds of industry. I have personally worked, starting in my first case was in consumer industry. My second case was an IT service industry. My third case is with the government currently. So you will get exposure to every kind of industry, every kind of function. Expert track is generally for a specific industry, which that kind of role is not offered over here.
Okay, I think this session was very helpful. Thank you, Molly. For all the questions which we could not cover, we will be sharing you the details of all the speakers who were there today as well as yesterday. So you can reach out to them personally if you want. All of these experiences, all of this talk, we try to cover based on our experiences as alumni. Things might change. Your current seniors and your placement committee will guide you better on all of those situations. please consider their advice first when it comes to all of the activities which are going to come forward in the next 6 terms. And with that, we would like to close off this webinar. I hope it was helpful for all of you, and we're always there for any other questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining. All the best for your new term.